April 24th, 2025. The first light over the Pacific paints the horizon in muted gold as the guided missile destroyer USS William P. Lawrence moves deliberately through the glassy waters of the Taiwan Strait. To most, it's just another ship cutting across open sea. But for those aboard, every sonar ping, every sweep of radar carries the unspoken gravity of deterrence, vigilance, and power. For the crew, it's familiar ground, another freedom of navigation patrol through one of the world's most contested waterways. Routine, at least on paper, but beneath that still surface, the currents of great power rivalry flow unseen. Because this morning, two military giants will meet. Not through cannon fire, but through the quiet tension of proximity, precision, and purpose. By mid-morning, Beijing's Eastern Theater Command issues a formal statement. Sharp language echoes through state media, accusations of provocation, warnings about sovereignty, talk of foreign intrusion. Yet Washington's answer is the same as always. Silence, no rebuttal, no escalation, just the calm defiance of a Navy that speaks through presence, not words. From the bridge, the view is deceptively tranquil. The sea stretches unbroken, the skies open and pale. But surveillance eyes are everywhere. Chinese reconnaissance drones have been visibly above. Coastal radar stations paint the destroyer's outline. Shore-based missile systems mark her range. And still, the Lawrence maintains course, steady as ever. Her engines humming, her crew composed, trained to meet tension with discipline. The United States Navy does not seek approval for where it sails. Its duty lies in principle that the world's oceans remain open, unclaimed, and free for all nations. So when Beijing calls it provocation, Washington calls it navigation. And in that semantic divide lies a quiet contest for the definition of freedom itself. To China, this is a test, an attempt to measure resolve. To the United States, it is a reaffirmation of rights long established and defended. Between these two interpretations, the Lawrence moves like a living declaration, 9,000 tons of quiet steel, upholding a rules-based order with every measured mile. And while the destroyer sails alone on the surface, she is far from isolated. Across the Pacific, Allied commands monitor her progress in real time. The Royal Navy, Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force, and others watching through encrypted data links and orbital sensors. Modern naval presence isn't just about ships on the water. It's about networks, coordination, and trust spanning thousands of miles. Beneath the surface, a Virginia-class submarine likely mirrors the route, unseen but ready. Overhead, a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon patrols high above the clouds, its radar mapping the sea with mathematical precision. Together they form a silent triad, air, sea, and undersea, projecting stability through seamless synchronization.
Inside Beijing's command centers, analysts trace the destroyer's every move, studying for hesitation or deviation, but none appears. The Lawrence completes her passage exactly as charted, precise, unflinching, silent. For Washington and its allies, this is not about confrontation. It is about continuity, the act of proving, through motion alone, that international law remains more than words in a treaty. It is lived, enforced, and sustained by those willing to uphold it. By sunrise, the Lawrence clears the northern edge of the strait, her wake fading into calm waters. To casual observers, nothing happened. But within that uneventful transit lies the essence of deterrence, a balance of vigilance and restraint, of invisible standoffs and unspoken strength. In that silence, every radar echo becomes a sentence, every nautical mile a statement. No shots fired, no conflict begun. Just one ship sailing steadily through contested waters and reminding the world that freedom, to endure, must keep moving.
To most of the world, it was just another quiet Tuesday. But for those watching closely, it was something far more deliberate. A signal sent across the Pacific. A reminder that peace in these waters isn't sustained by luck, but by presence. And on this day, presence came wrapped in gray steel and disciplined silence. As the USS William P. Lawrence faded beyond the reach of Chinese coastal radar, the next phase of the Pacific's unfolding chess match had already begun. Hundreds of miles to the south, across the Luzon Strait, US and Philippines forces were mobilizing for Exercise Balikatan, the largest joint operation in the history of their alliance. The timing was anything but random. Within hours of Beijing's condemnation of the US destroyer's passage, American Marines were offloading HIMARS rocket systems on the Philippine shoreline. Fighter jets screamed overhead, amphibious vehicles churned the surf, and artillery units rehearsed precision bombardments across simulated inland targets. This was not coincidence, it was coordination. A calculated show of readiness, proving that the principle of free navigation is enforced not just with words, but with mobility, reach, and resolve. Inside the Pentagon, the picture was part of a wider framework. Deterrence through dispersion. The evolving doctrine known as Agile Combat Employment, or ACE, aims to trade vulnerability for flexibility. Rather than relying on vast, static bases in Guam or Okinawa, U.S. forces are now training to operate from dozens of smaller, adaptable airfields scattered across Allied territory. Fuel, radar, munitions, even field repair teams are being distributed like chess pieces across the Pacific's remote islands. From Palawan to Tinian, from Micronesia to Northern Australia, the United States and its partners are weaving a mobile defense grid built to endure, absorb, and strike back. In the skies above, KC-135 tankers extend the reach of American fighters. At sea, C-17 Globemasters haul supplies and personnel between forward bases. Each sortie, each refueling, each redeployment tightens that invisible web, a system designed not for spectacle, but for survival. Its guiding idea is deceptively simple. Every island can become an airbase, every strip of water a launch point. The Pacific itself becomes a fortress in motion. For China's planners, that concept presents a strategic dilemma. The People's Liberation Army has long based its strategy on the ability to isolate and overwhelm US forces early in conflict. But AC denies that advantage. By turning unpredictability into doctrine, Washington has made mobility its greatest strength. And mobility in warfare is dominance. As American forces trained along Philippine beaches, Japan's self-defense forces and Australia's Royal Air Force executed synchronized maneuvers of their own. From Guam, British Typhoons joined the formations, seamlessly integrating into a shared network of air and naval coordination. The Pacific was no longer a patchwork of operations. It was fast becoming a unified theater of cooperation. And Beijing was watching. Satellite imagery soon revealed the PLA Navy's carrier group, led by the Shandong, edging uncomfortably close to the Philippines' northern waters, well inside Manila's exclusive economic zone. The move drew immediate condemnation, triggering radar locks, patrol alerts, and diplomatic protests. But in Washington and Manila, the response was deliberate, not reactive. Because this was no longer about retaliation, it was about demonstration. Each maneuver, each passage, each exercise delivered the same unmistakable message. The United States and its allies were no longer operating in parallel. They were moving in unison. From the US Navy to the Royal Navy, from the Australian Defense Force to Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force. This wasn't a coalition of convenience. It was an alliance of intent. And as Beijing state networks broadcast images of Chinese warships trailing the Lawrence, analysts across Allied command centers saw the pattern clearly. China's fleet was following, America's was leading. To the untrained eye, the Pacific seemed unchanged, a boundless expanse of blue, calm and familiar. But to the satellites orbiting above and the sensors quietly sweeping below, a new pattern was emerging. The Indo-Pacific was being redrawn, piece by piece, island by island,
patrol by patrol, into a living architecture of deterrence. At the heart of this transformation stood the same guiding conviction that had carried the USS William P. Lawrence through the Taiwan Strait. Presence is power.
In an age ruled by hypersonic weapons and invisible cyber campaigns, the sight of a destroyer cutting through the waves or Marines drilling on distant shores might seem symbolic. Yet in strategy, symbols carry weight. They project intent, shape perception, and mark the unseen front lines where great powers test one another long before open conflict begins. As the sun slipped below the horizon over the Philippine coast, one realization crystallized. The Pacific wasn't drifting toward confrontation by chance. It was being shaped, measured, and defined through every maneuver, every deployment, every signal sent across its waters. While fleets moved across the ocean's surface, another contest raged in near silence, one not measured in distance or firepower, but in data. Inside a secure operations center in Hawaii, the screens of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command flickered to life with encrypted alerts. Analysts leaned forward as digital streams rippled across their monitors. Intercepted bursts of coded activity traced directly to mainland China. The intrusion was subtle but coordinated. Someone was probing Allied systems, mapping their responses. The battle was invisible, but the implications were immense. Chinese cyber units had long tested Western defenses, but this operation carried a sharper edge. Synchronized attacks targeting live logistics feeds from joint Pacific exercises. For Washington and London, this wasn't unexpected. It was validation. The battlefield had already expanded beyond sea and air. In 21st century warfare, data isn't just intelligence, it's ordnance. To meet the threat, U.S. Cyber Command launched Operation Watchtower, a joint US-UK initiative designed to track and neutralize hostile incursions across Allied communication networks. Within minutes, analysts from Britain's GCHQ were linked in from Cheltenham, coordinating seamlessly with their counterparts at Fort Meade. The digital partnership echoed an old legacy, the same Anglo-American cooperation that once cracked the Enigma code now stood guard over the Pacific's invisible front. The findings came quickly and confirmed the scale of the threat. Intrusions tied to Chinese state actors were mapping refueling routes, ship movements, and command frequencies. It wasn't direct sabotage, it was reconnaissance, an attempt to chart how far the alliance could see and how fast it could respond. But this time, the US and UK weren't standing alone. Under the Five Eyes Alliance, intelligence sharing flowed in real time across America, Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Each intercepted signal, every suspicious packet of data, was instantly flagged, decoded, and distributed through a web of trusted analysts.
At Pearl Harbor, cyber defense teams worked side by side with Royal Navy specialists aboard the HMS Tamar, now deployed as part of joint operations. Their collaboration sent an unmistakable message across the digital and maritime domains alike. The Indo-Pacific was no longer a single nation's arena. It had become an integrated, allied network. Meanwhile, Beijing state media dismissed the rising alerts, asserting that foreign meddling endangered China's regional peace. Yet, satellite intelligence told another story. Surveillance imagery revealed an accelerated buildup of PLA signal intelligence bases across Hainan and the Spratly Chain, sprawling arrays of radar domes and communication towers all aligned towards the South China Sea. To Allied observers, these installations weren't defensive shields. They were forward sensors, digital sentinels forming a vast perimeter of surveillance. As cyber strain mounted, the Royal Air Force dispatched a wing of E-7 Wedgetail aircraft from Guam, airborne command platforms armed with sophisticated radar and encrypted data links. Operating alongside US RC-135 Rivet Joint and P-8A Poseidon aircraft, they wove an immense tapestry of electronic vigilance across the Pacific expansion. Each signal mattered. Each faint pulse revealed intent. During one sortie, an American P-8A Poseidon picked up a faint radar pattern near Scarborough Shoal, consistent with Chinese electronic intelligence trawlers. Seconds later, a British wedge-tail confirmed the trace-through pass's detection. The Allied response was swift. Naval formations shifted course, denying enemy surveillance corridors without a single weapon fired. This was deterrence by precision, control defined not by force, but by awareness itself. In Washington and in London, officials watched with measured concern. The contest was no longer limited to ships or aircraft. It revolved around the credibility of alliances in an age of hybrid warfare. One misinterpreted signal, one errant report, could ignite confrontation faster than any missile.
Thus, diplomacy advanced hand in hand with deterrence. In Singapore, quiet meetings between US and British envoys and ASEAN partners reaffirmed a simple truth. The Indo-Pacific stability must rest upon transparency and adherence to international law, not coercion or dominance. And as the USS William P. Lawrence glided through Taiwan's eastern approaches, its steel hull carried more than firepower. It bore the weight of doctrine itself. That freedom to survive must be guarded across every realm: maritime, aerial, orbital, and digital. The West was no longer merely reacting. It was shaping the rules of engagement in real time, wielding discipline, data, and unity as instruments of strategy. For in the Indo-Pacific, the first blow may not come with an explosion, but with a signal, detected, intercepted, or lost, echoing in the void between two rival networks. And within that silence, the next balance of power will be decided. The Pacific now rests beneath a delicate calm, a peace not inherited but defended. From the hidden depths where submarines move unseen to the high skies where Allied pilots trace unseen boundaries of vigilance, every heartbeat of this theater carries weight and purpose. The United States and its allies endure as more than fleets. They stand as a covenant, a living testament that unity, forged through shared sacrifice, remains the most potent shield against instability. In every wave lapping the hull and every radar pulse slicing the dark resonates one enduring truth. Peace survives only because vigilance never sleeps. And tonight, that watch continues.